Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is I, Imperial Dane, with another Propagandacast for you, my faithful and wonderful viewers. And today we have a 1 versus 1 on Industrial Riverbed. Industrial Riverbed in the... somewhere in France, I suspect, or possibly Holland, an industrial area. Very nice and lovely. And for the Americans, 4th Infantry Division, Mayopie. Yes, Mayopie, who was also the one to submit this replay. And we have 75, yes, indeed, not really much of a name, certainly not one pronounceable, but still he's there. 17th SS Panzergrenadiers, ready to take the fight to the Americans and defend this area for the fatherland. And of course, the fun thing about Industrial Riverbed is indeed the river crossing through it, albeit not a very large one or a deep one, but still certainly able to provide some obstacles and some points of really contention. And of course we have this central point with a medium munitions point and the victory point on this small island connected by 2 bridges. Anyhow, let's get this started, and I should probably tell you this is not going to be a match between high level players, but it's certainly might provide some interesting pointers for newer players to this game, so I hope you're watching and perhaps even taking some notes. Usual engineers start up from the Americans, setting up barracks and getting a second team. Always good. And we have the Schwimmwagen Type 128 out for the 17th SS, securing the nearby area. The Schwimmwagen being more or less the same as the Kettenkrab, but having different abilities depending on doctrine. For example, the Schwimmwagen can lay down mines, incendiary mines, or mark targets. Although I'm a bit unsure about the usefulness of marked target. And we of course see a rifleman team on the way, while engineers are scurrying out to secure nearby territory in the name of Uncle Sam. We have Mayopie admitting to being a noob, or novice I suppose would be a slightly more relaxed term about it. No point in going around saying that. I feel you're better on just taking on the fight and doing your best to improve. Not sure as to his opponent's level, but let's just enjoy the match. Riflemen moving out as well now on the field. We have the single Panzergrenadier team out for the 17th SS, laying down a logistic company, which probably means he's going to go straight for scout cars. And we also see a second Schwimmwagen on the field. So not a lot to actually fight off the Americans, and only mostly to seize territory, which can of course be useful unless of course the Americans are actually attacking, in which case you might actually face yourself with some troubles, and Schwimmwagens aren't exactly the toughest of units or light vehicles, that's for sure. The Schwimmwagen looking nice and small. Engineers moving towards this, having gained some territory already from Mayopie with his larger unit advantage. Second rifleman team on the field, pressing upwards as well. And we see, or well, we saw something on the way. No, there is something away, probably a scout car. Yes, indeed, we have the scout car. One variant of the armored car the Panzer Elite has. This one just equipped with a light machine gun. Some players do like to use them as a sort of armored car, since they do have a lot of health, but the machine guns aren't necessarily the best ones, but they can be useful. Also be mindful that the turret is rather slow in turning, so they aren't really that great combat units on that point as well. Engineers going on to fight off the Schwimmwagen. American troops heading northwards, and here Mayopie is making a bit of a blunder. He's clumping up his riflemen, which could certainly be used for a lot more useful things, like engaging this Panzergrenadier team with just taking off one team of riflemen, but instead just clumping them around, having one team take the point while the other does nothing, and actually standing out in the open, not even trying to take up a defensive position behind, for example, this lovely heavy cover. That's really something you should try to avoid, you know, clumping up your troops and having them stand around. It only serves to present your troops as a big fat target. Schwimmwagens and scout cars seizing the northern area alongside the Panzergrenadier team. Riflemen now falling upon the Schwimmwagen, which is looking quite damaged, and forced to retreat while the scout car is trying to cut off this munitions point. And now the riflemen just stop up, completely seizing this strategic point. For example, instead of going after this scout car, or perhaps trying to deal with these Panzergrenadiers, it's also a sort of problem of priorities that Mayopie is suffering from a bit. Now engaging the scout car from a nice distance, certainly nothing wrong in that. But at the same time, he could certainly stand to quickly move up on it, since his riflemen are much more accurate there and would be able to unleash a lot more firepower on it. And scout car crushing right in between the riflemen. Schwimmwagen, a earlier testament to the devastation of the M1 Garands they have equipped. Scout car looking quite heavily damaged, forced to pull back, while a second Schwimmwagen is currently seizing this medium munitions point yet. And of course, Panzergrenadiers seizing this northern point, but Mayopie still clumps his troops together in a big blob, a vast horde of infantry, and now standing out in the middle of the road. Bad cover, and certainly against Panzergrenadiers in heavy cover, not a good idea. And it looks like he has increased squad sizes, which means 4 Panzergrenadiers in a Panzergrenadier team rather than just 3, meaning they'll be a lot more dangerous and a bit more comparable to regular Grenadier teams. So Mayopie is still climbing up his troops. lrb or 17th SS, I'll just call him since the name is a bit too much of trouble to pronounce, is still hanging around with his scout car, heavily damaged, probably going to repair it. And some Panzergrenadier team sneaking around a bit. Panzergrenadiers engaging the engineers. Looks like the engineers will lose this fight. 1 engineer down, leaving only 1 back. And now we see Mayopie ignoring this Panzergrenadier team. Again, priority problem, not engaging with the actual threat. And standing out in the middle of nowhere once more, seizing the point but exposing his men to firepower. And for example, this heavy cover, meaning any troops up there will have a definite advantage, and he'll just be standing there looking like prime targets. And now Panzergrenadiers moving in from all sides, and we see incendiary grenades hitting on the clumped riflemen, causing a lot of damage. 1 team pulling out, another looks like it wants to charge up the stairs. Oh, bad move, pull back. Oh god. Rifleman team slaughtered on the stairs of the Industrial Riverbed, massacred by the Elite Panzergrenadiers, and we see a jeep out for the American. Certainly not a completely useless choice. Certainly can be useful against cars and a bit of harassment, of course. But at this point, I'm not entirely sure that is what he needs. He really needs to focus on, using cover and not charging his men up tight stairs towards Panzergrenadiers in heavy cover. But he is certainly doing a decent job at actually trying to seize points and be a bit aggressive on that way, so certainly able to keep up the pressure that way. But troop management really should be something he ought to train in a bit further. Troop survivability and cover usage. Always, if possible, use cover. It can really make the difference. It can mean 1 team can hold off numerous larger teams while holding cover if they're, for example, not standing around in it. So again, use cover. Use the terrain to your advantage, not to your enemies. As George was happened here. We see the Panzergrenadiers of the 17th SS seizing this area. No resistance from the American troops, although looks like an American assault team is on the way, while a supply yard has gone up from Mayopie, but he's heavily lacking in fuel, so currently can't get anything up. And we see a Schwimmwagen moving around, and the scout car still being repaired. One should note that Panzergrenadiers, unless the Kampfgruppe Company advanced repairs upgrade has been researched, will repair units quite slowly, and I suspect these have been in fact added at a long time. We see combat going out here. Panzergrenadiers out in the open as well. Riflemen actually using a bit of cover. Panzergrenadiers moving in from the south. These 17th SS troops are suffering heavy casualties, and for some reason the 17th SS are trying to seize this point, while there are riflemen and a lot of other things nearby, and retreating right through them, losing the entire team. That was certainly unfortunate. And the jeep taking on the Schwimmwagen. It's 30 caliber air-cooled light machine gun doing quite a lot of damage to the Schwimmwagen. Will it hunt it down? Apparently not. Or will it? Could be, yes indeed. But we see the scout car is once more on the field and taking on the jeep, which might force the jeep to pull back, since it's going to be an uneven fight for sure. Riflemen standing around, not doing anything, although good move by Mayopie, laying down a mine there to prevent any seizure of this point, and of course inflicting heavy casualties if possible to the opponent. Engineers moving up as well here, might lay down further mines perhaps. Scout car moving straight for the victory point, taking fire from the jeep, stopping to seize the point since he can't actually do anything while taking a point. And now we see riflemen moving in, veterancy 1 in support of the jeep, and we see the 1st Panzergrenadier out for the 17th SS. Large Panzergrenadier teams taking on the riflemen who are out in the open, going to suffer heavily. The jeep might also want to stay at a safe distance from the Panzergrenadier. Further riflemen moving up. Riflemen pulling back, just barely making out of there with that veterancy achievement. And now the Panzergrenadiers are charging right into the riflemen. Not a good idea, but retreating with one man back. This is certainly going to be costly though to reinforce, and the jeep charging right past. Panzergrenadiers taking on the riflemen who are still also out in the open. Really, had they either sought cover behind this wrecked car, things would certainly have looked a lot different, but one rifleman team has in fact been knocked out, and the second one barely makes it out of there alive, while it looks like the Americans are laying down further mines to impede seizure of this strategic point. Again, note good mine placement in the direction he suspects the enemy will come from. So, for example, not laying it down here where, for example, might only work to harass you by some unfortunate accident, but here the enemy will most likely run into it, boom, suffer heavy casualties or some, and also impeding capture progress. Riflemen sneaking around in the north right outside the enemy's base, cheeky, and taking this medium munitions point. Certainly good at harassment and certainly good at seizing territory. Really something to note here, and certainly something the Panzer Elite player could have used to actually try and, hamper, which again would have been perhaps a bit more useful had he been a bit better preserving these scout vehicles and having a bit further troops to actually protect the shrimp wagons and scout car. But at the same time, he did do good quite here, slaughtering the riflemen. Certainly things that could be improved on both sides. Riflemen still hanging around together, really needs to learn how to do things at several times, and of course if anything was to happen, any sort of attack, he could easily pull one team over to help the other. Instead he just stands around, minimizing the possible effect of his troops in a defenseless area. Heavy attempt at seizing territory here. I really think the Panzer Elite commanders really should try to be more aggressive and deal casualties to Mayopie, since he usually does a pretty good job when that happens. Veterancy 1 up for the jeep, which I do believe means increased speed, and we see the first M8 armored car out for the American. M8 Greyhound, 37mm light gun, and a 50 cal also to be mounted. Certainly quite dangerous, and of course can lay down some really heavy mines. Scout car forced to pull back, not a match at all for the M8 armored car. Things are not looking good for the Panzer Elite commander. He certainly had the advantage briefly, but I feel like he did not manage to seize it properly, and Mayopie just hanging around doing very little, I'm afraid. Bit tragic. M8 stalking the battlefield, looking for infantry to pounce upon and tear apart. We see a Panzerjäger command going up for the 17th